Somewhere beneath the depths of the Nintendo DSiWare library existed a game that was truly the pinnacle of mankind's achievements. This game was absolutely groundbreaking and set the standard for an entire generation of gaming. Pop Island was initially revealed at the 2009 London WiiWare and DSiWare Media Summit, and apparently it was so good that the Nintendo Life reporters got told off by the developer for getting too into the action. Yeah, me too. Anyway, Pop Island was released a couple of months later on December 7th, 2009. Honestly, I can't remember living before that date. The game was an absolute hit. It was praised for its incredibly engaging gameplay and its stunning and unique visuals. You see, the characters and landscape are all inspired by paper crafts and modern urban art. Couple that with the entire game running at a buttery smooth 60 frames per second, and the whole game just holds up incredibly well. That's what happiness sounds like. So here we are on Pop Island. We have our options here: solo, share demo, multiplayer, and credits. Come on, this game has God in the credits. How charming is that? There are two game modes. In Joyful, you capture the flags and joyfully win the game. In the evening, they will be shooting out your name and you will feel proud and happy. Aww. So there are flags placed around the map, and two teams are trying to get as many of them back to their base as possible. You press A or Y to jump and B or X to shoot a firecracker at your enemies. It's just like high school. If you hit an enemy with a firecracker, it sends them flying in a seemingly random direction and they drop a flag if they're holding one. You move slower when you're holding a flag, so you're more vulnerable to attacks, so you better protect your teammates if you see them holding one. If you successfully bring back a flag to your base, the flag respawns at a set location on the map where it's up for grabs for anyone passing by. Playful Mode is pretty much your standard capture the flag. Each team now has one flag they have to protect at their base. Go out and bring the enemy's flag back to your base. Yeah, you know this. There are a number of power-ups scattered about the maps, and each one adds an extra level of strategy to the game. As named by the game's manual, the Great Jump power-up sends you flying across the map, away from, or if you're unlucky, right into all of the action. This is by far my favorite power-up. What I like to do is hang out at the enemy's base, see someone about to score, nab their flag, and fling myself back over to my base. The Flashes of Lightning power-up strikes down your enemies that are near enough to you, as if hit by a firecracker. Basically, just walk into an enemy with the flag and it is now your flag. This one does feel kind of weak though, as it seems like it has a very thin hitbox. The Circle of Light supposedly protects you, but from what I can tell it just does what the Flashes of Lightning does but better. Simply beautiful, as the manual puts it. The missile is probably my least favorite of the bunch, as it really doesn't add much strategy. You see, activating this one will turn your crappy old firecrackers into big beefy missiles that home in on enemies, whether they be in front of or behind you. This one, if any, feels more like a crutch, as you basically just spam the B button. It also lasts slightly longer than the other power-ups, which just adds to the crutch-ishness. There are 8 maps in the game, each named after a planet in the solar system. Yes, they left out Pluto. Come on, it's the current year. All of them feel unique, and they have very beautiful color palettes and designs. As stated by the developer, all of the maps are deliberately planned out for each planet. For example, Earth is very basic and easy to pick up, and Saturn is more advanced with rough terrain and allows for more strategy. Well, look at all these characters. There are 2 teams, Colorful Rainbow reserved for the colorful characters, and Almost Black for the, you know. Now look, I know I've said this before, but I really like these designs. There are 12 of them in all, and each of them perfectly embodies the unique papercraft style to the game. Seriously, I would kill for an origami of one of these guys. There are 4 basic types of movement: land, water, and air. The land-based characters are all sporting wheels. They move quickly on flat land and they control very snappily. Although if you find yourself in the water, yeah, you better have something else next to you to pass the time. The aquatic characters are usually some sort of fish, and a penguin. As expected, they move very quickly in water but are pretty weak on land. This choice has some drawbacks, as obviously every point of interest is on land. But if you're on the map with a lot of water on it, then you'll probably fare way better. Something interesting with the swimming characters is that if you stop moving, then you'll be able to hide underwater and ambush your opponents, but this rarely comes in useful. There are a couple of flying guys that go slower overall, but can easily glide over all terrain. I personally feel like these are the most beginner-friendly, as for more experienced players, they can just feel so slow. Overall, they all feel pretty fun to control, and all the adorable sound effects they always make just add so much character to them all. Moving on, we have some difficulty levels. Going up increases the amount of CPUs on each team, as well as the difficulty of the AI. However, in the upper levels, your team will have less players, forcing you to compensate for them with your pure human skill. After a short loading screen, here we are, the moment that Evolution was building up for. Immediately we're greeted with the incredible soundtrack to the game, composed by Raphael Ghesca. The soundtrack was actually nominated for an award at one time, and I can definitely see why. The music perfectly embodies the spirit of the game, and some songs are just so fun to listen to. Plus, if you plug headphones in, you'll experience a full 3D sound environment.
Whoa! 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 Whoa!
On the bottom screen, you have the top 5 players on each team, as well as a mini-map that tells you where all the nearby flags, power-ups, friends, and enemies are, as well as highlighting your base when you have a flag. Once you complete a game of single player, you get solar points. At certain milestones, you unlock new characters, maps, and the other game mode. This extra little detail just adds a new feeling of purpose to the game, and makes you want to come back and play some more. I need to clarify something real quick. This game is insane. There's just so much going on at any given point in time, and on the higher levels of difficulty, it really does feel like every last flag counts. You see, each game is split into 2 different segments, each lasting about 3 minutes. This not only provides a much needed break, but also puts a split through the action and switches the 2 teams as bases. This prevents the game from feeling dragged out, and to me, 3 minutes feels about perfect for each round. Basically, the whole idea of this game is built off of this frantic and chaotic energy, and it all just fits together perfectly. There's also multiplayer. I mean, come on, it was inevitable. With the share demo option on the menu, you can blast a small temporary playable version of the game over download play, which allows other people with any DS, yes, even the chunky thing, to all play together at the same time. And with just one DSi with a copy of the game, you can create a room and play with 7 other people over download play. Now, unfortunately, I can't demonstrate the multiplayer due to unforeseen circumstances, but trust me, it's way better than solo mode. But the game, of course, isn't perfect. Using the D-pad can get annoying over time, and using the stylus to move around is just... why? At the end of each round, the music just stops like 10 seconds before the end, and it just kinda feels weird. It can feel disorienting trying to look at both the top screen and the minimap on the bottom screen, and you really need both in order to navigate well. Also, sometimes the AI can be kinda dumb. But all things considered, this was an incredibly unique and charming little DSiWare game. And with all this for only $5, you would have been an outcast from society if you didn't get this. Pop Island was developed by a small French company by the name of Odenis Studio, and seeing how well the game did as well as all of the pretty positive reviews, I think they knew what to do next. Oh look, grammar. Pop Island Paperfield was the next entry in this godsend of a series, and a little more than grammar has changed. For one, the music is in a weird situation. You see, the soundtrack to this game is the exact same as the original Pop Island, but actually with less tracks for some reason. It's not that big of a deal since all the real bangers are still present, but just something that is odd. The next big thing to change is the characters. The colorful Rainbow team has rebranded into the Magic Shooters and now consists of vehicles instead of everyone being animals. They are functionally the same and even have the same sound effects. Except for one new character. Mano is yet a humble hovercraft, but kind of also breaks the game. You see, most characters have an advantage and a drawback that matches. Some are fast on water but slow on land, etc. Mano is above mortality. Mano moves fast on both water and land, and on top of that, he climbs over terrain absolutely effortlessly. The only real drawback to him is that he takes a while to turn around and overall feels very floaty, but it doesn't really feel like it makes up for his mobility enough. There are a total of 3 new maps, and all of the maps are named after Greek mythology instead of planets. Now, other than that, there are a few characters and maps that you can unlock by owning the original Pop Island, and, well, there you go. Those are, apparently, the only new things in Pop Island Paperfield. Now, not to say that the second Pop Island game is bad, in fact, it's pretty much just the same great Pop Island with a few new things for returning players to enjoy. In fact, this is actually how I got into the series when I picked it up on my 3DS here. I, as well as certainly many other people, have some very fond memories of these games. Just sitting around, playing this fun little quirky DSiWare game with your friends and family. The legacy of Pop Island is so underrated, and I'm so sad that I don't see many other people talk about it. However, the story doesn't end there, no siree. It's been almost 10 years now since Pop Island Paperfield released, so what has good ol' Odennis Studio been up to this whole time? Well, it's a long story. In January, the year after Pop Island Paperfield was released, Odennis made a game called Glory Days Tactical Defense. This was a continuation of Odennis' other series, which was incredibly successful. There's nothing very interesting here, except that they reused some of the vehicles from Pop Island Paperfield. Now picture this. It's September of 2012, and the Nintendo 3DS has been out for more than a year now. A lot of people just got done with their fun with Pop Island on the DSi, and we're starting to wonder if Odennis was making a new entry to the series on the new, powerful console. The answer was no. Rising Board 3D was an endless runner where you perform tricks and collect these things called sun points. They are used to unlock more boards and upgrades, but there's no replay value here at all. And to rub it in, this was just a port of an iPhone game they made a year ago. I mean, this game was almost Pop Island, but it's not, and it was received by a lukewarm at best impression. It's such a shame too. They had the chance to make a brand new, fully featured Pop Island game on the 3DS, but sadly they missed that, and they made this thing right here. I mean, come on, this even reuses some of the music, as well as even having a couple of original tracks by Giska himself. Overall, it was a mediocre pile of and many fans were left disappointed. Also, I never got it. However, sometime around 2013, Odennis Studio began developing something big. On July 24th, 2014, we got the first little bit of this new something with an iOS game titled Fish and Shark. This was a very simple game in which you go right as either a fish or a thermonuclear— no, it's a shark. There were these things that you collect. Sometimes it moves you into another direction, and there you go. This game reuses some sound effects and music from Pop Island, as well as the models for the fish and the shark. However, the difference here is that the game has this absolutely gorgeous world that you go through. This game was marketed as being beautiful, and it shows. The lighting, the visuals, and everything was in this glorious new HD resolution. The next year, on June 10th, 2015, we got a real idea of this big new project in the form of an iOS game called Fairy Stone. This was like nothing that Odennis had done before. It was a sandbox game intended for younger audiences, and it seems like it used the same engine as Fish and Shark, as it featured the same beautiful art style. In it, you build stuff and fly around. There was also a very rudimentary way to compose music. They also let you control as a few Pop Island characters, which honestly kind of angers me. That's not just a shark, his name is Tony! Yeah, this game was very basic, and there wasn't really much to do, and it was very much made for young kids. Plus, some people didn't like it because they compared it to Minecraft. Yeah, 2015 was a very different time. In November of 2015, Odennis released yet another iOS game called 5 Minutes Before. In this game, you have 5 minutes until the world is destroyed. You fly around in this stealth bomber thing and try to save as many people on the rooftops as possible. You are limited on fuel until you refuel on the helipad at the center of the map, so you have to make strategic decisions on who to save and who to leave to perish in the Armageddon. I have to say, this game's art style is much more impressive and appealing than the last 2 entries, and the gameplay looks genuinely fun, which isn't really something I've thought since Pop Island Paperfield. Also, you could play it in VR. There's not really much more to say about this game other than that it, for some reason, garnered a lot more attention than the last 2 iOS games. Next up is A Place to Create, a game that was very much like Fairy Stone before it, but now you're confined to a much smaller space and you're given better tools for making stuff. There's also less baby-ish stuff here, and they updated the graphics a tad, which I think were necessary changes. So after a while of making these small, run-of-the-mill mobile games, it was certain that Odennis was planning something much, much bigger, as being reduced to a second-rate iOS developer isn't exactly anyone's dream. On July 13th, 2018, years of hard work and effort culminated into video game construction set. Pop Island Let's Code. This was a game released on PC. Yes! That is about teaching the player how to code their own games, and presents itself more like a software development kit than a game. Yeah, apparently the founder of Odennis Studio is very passionate about programming, and this seemed like the perfect thing to do. I mean, come on guys, it's technically a Pop Island game. It says so in the title. So here we are in Pop Island Let's Code on Steam for $10. Let's see what it has to offer. So right off the bat, we have a few options. On the side here, we can select whatever set of code we want to use, organized by games, AI, and whatnot. Each slot has preset things in it, so you can mess around in it however you please. Down here, we have the main options. First up, build. I hope you liked when I talked about Fairy Stone, cause oh boy, here it is. I mean, there are a few better tools, the graphics are much nicer, although there are quite a few bugs I've seen, and the default map is pretty large, but it just repeats after a while. However, the main idea here is the building. Here you can make your own world and buildings to use in things. However, I don't think this mode is that fun, and it feels a little aimless. And, of course, you can rewrite your own code for world generation. I just don't care. That brings us to the Code tab, your one-stop shop for...
What the hell?
Yeah, there's no guide for what's going on here, so you better already know this stuff. I mean, yeah, you can certainly code stuff here. Well, not that I would know. I have absolutely no coding experience whatsoever, so I'm not quite sure if this is good or bad. There are tutorials that are there to help you write some small games and such, but they are sort of confusing and don't really feel like much effort was put into the presentation. And that is a shame, because that's really the whole point of the game, to teach people how to write their own code and then play with it. But unfortunately, it does seem like there is more to be had here. Now the last tab is... Wait, is that... Could it be? Oh no. Oh yes! Yes! It's Pop Island! After all this time, in glorious HD visuals, it's a very dry version of Pop Island. There's absolutely no music, the character sound effects are gone, you're confined to this claustrophobic first-person view, and the default map is very basic and not really well suited for the gameplay. There are also a handful of other built-in games for you to try, including One Shot, which is intended for 2 players and I know nothing about. 5 minutes before you know of this, go back in the video. Space Ghost Attack, yeah, it's Space Invaders, and Fish and Shark making a return. All of these games feel very bare bones and stripped away, and they are all very much intended for you to mess around with their code and nothing more. One gripe I have with this game is the absolute lack of music. You see, Pop Island is characterized by its fun and charming music. The closest thing it has here are these ukulele chords that play whenever you select an option. And if you know one thing about me, it's my hate for this instrument. All in all, Pop Island Let's Code offers some potential in creating your own games within it, but what it has as of now is very basic, and there doesn't really seem to be any point outside of education. You see, the game's trailers and description really like to push this as a way to learn about programming, but this just does not really cut it. There are plenty of resources out there that do exactly this, some even for free, but sadly this feels sort of aimless and there is a lot to be done to make this a more enjoyable experience. Later that year, on October 19th, 2018, every Odennis game was removed from the Nintendo 3DS eShop. Years of fun and memories for so many completely halted, and if you didn't buy them when they were available, then these games are completely lost forever. The next year, on December 17, 2019, Pop Island Let's Code was given a version on Android. This is the best day of my life. And that brings us to today, where we don't have much to do but ponder, well, what's next? For the time being, it seems like Odennis Studio seems completely focused on their Pop Island Let's Code endeavor. However, more and more people are remembering their fun with the original Pop Island games, and are hoping for an eventual full return of this beloved series. What most, as well as I hope for, is an HD remaster of the original Pop Island games, or even a new game from the ground up on the Switch. Some hopes include full HD graphics, more game modes, remastered music, and even online multiplayer, although that last one would be a stretch. I mean, they already have all the HD models right there. All they need to do is set up some physics, model some maps in the original style, make the menus, and there you go. I mean, heck, you could even hit up Raphael Gisca again and get some original tracks. How awesome would that be? The gameplay of Pop Island is incredibly unique and fun, and I can genuinely see a remastered version on the Switch being a huge success. I just don't want to see it wasted on some now lost DSiWare games and this. When I was planning this video, I was going to call it the tragic story of Pop Island. But now I won't, because there is hope for the series. At the end of the day, whatever Odennis Studio decides to do next, I hope it turns out great. I mean, they could forever focus on Pop Island Let's Code and continually improve it into something truly great. But whenever I dig up my crusty 3DS I got when I was 9, I won't forget my priceless memories of this game.